Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Luis Rosa, and I'm your host. Today, I have a very good friend of mine, my main man, my brother from another mother, Emlen Miles-Mattingly. If the name sounds familiar, it's because we were recently on his podcast, the Minority Money podcast, not too long ago. So I want him to tell us about himself, so I'm not going to spoil anything about him, but just want to tell you quickly, he is the CEO and founder of NexGen Wealth, also the host and creator of Minority Money podcast. He has been in the financial services industry for almost 20 years now. And let's get into it, man. Emlen, welcome, and thank you for being on the show.
Man, thanks for having me, Luis. This is an honor to be on your show. Ever since we met last year, we kind of clicked up and just been homies since then. And just to be able to be here, after having you on my show, after where we started meeting in St. Louis last year. It's just been awesome, man. And I can't wait to get in. Background, I have almost 20 years in financial services. I did start on the banking side of it. And that was so much fun to start there. And it gives you a different perspective on money. When you're working there and you see the loans on that side, you can see that just because someone drives a nice car doesn't necessarily mean that they have a lot of money.
True.
And I started to link those two together, and there was a lot of us minorities driving nice cars with no money. And always wanted to be a financial advisor. Finally took the leap in 2012, worked at Edward Jones for a little while. And then from Edward Jones went to principal. I was there at principal for about 5 years, and loved it. I learned so much there on the retirement planning side and the life insurance piece. But what I did find out is that minorities still had tons of questions about what to do, and getting a lot of misinformation. I talked to someone the other day, which was crazy. I still can't believe this is still going on. And I just wanted to share this real quick before we get into it. But I was talking to someone the other day, and she was telling me she's a single girl. She works at the bank, and she was like, I went to go get my taxes. And she's like, every year I have to, she's a Latina girl, woman. And she was like, every year I go do my taxes, and I always end up paying every year. And instead of, what they tell me is, she's like, well, the person that's doing my taxes was like, well, you should just have a kid, then you'll have an exemption. I was like, you got like,
wow,
whoa, hold on, time out. Let's time out. Have a kid, or claim more on your taxes during the year, or claim less on your taxes, claim zero, or just send extra money to the IRS. I said, so she didn't say anything about putting more money into your retirement account. Nothing. Like she was like, no, why would I do that? I was like, because it lowers your taxable income. Then you don't have to worry. She was like, no one's ever told me that. And there's still like all this misinformation out here. So anyhow, that led me into financial planning. And we opened up Gen Next Wealth almost 3 years ago, and started the Minority Money podcast almost a year ago. It'll be a year in July. So it's been a hell of a ride, and can't wait to jump into this interview with you.
Yeah, thank you, man. And you're killing the podcast. You're almost over 40 episodes already, right?
I believe episode 40 dropped today.
Nice.
I'm sorry, went last week. Earlier this week. Yeah, so we're up to 40. Yeah, we're up to 40 now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
That's amazing. So, yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because, we've been talking about this before, and obviously coronavirus has affected the entire world at this point from an economic standpoint and healthcare and everything. But I wanted to focus more on the impact it has had on minorities in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought of the best person to bring to this topic was definitely you. So yeah, tell me your take on how COVID-19 is affecting minorities particularly.
Yeah, so COVID-19 has really, it's affected the entire world. First of all, let's take a step back and talk about how it's affected the world in everyone in this world has been affected by COVID-19. So it does not have, it's not a respecter of race, color, creed, religion, sexual preference, orientation, any of that. Doesn't matter. Anybody can get it. And the thing that is really, affecting minorities is like it's disproportionately affecting minorities because of the lack of, whether I like to start with saying that it's a lack of education. And when I say education, I'm actually talking about going to college, getting a degree,
Right.
and getting a different type of job, which wouldn't allow you to maybe not be as susceptible, or in the environments where the virus is more likely to be contracted. And so when it comes to that, you can look at the numbers in New York. We were talking about this, in your we'll call that your hometown anyways. We know you're from the DR, but New York raised you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my home.
And so when we look at the numbers and we see how disproportionately African Americans and Latinos are being hospitalized, how many of them are dying compared to their to our white and Asian counterparts, it is really eye opening and jaw dropping when you look at it. And the biggest reason that I can say is because of some of the jobs that we work, some of the underlying health issues that we already have. You already know that Blacks and Latinos lead the nation in hypertension. We lead the nation in diabetes. We lead the nation in obesity. Like,
Wow.
we lead the nation in a lot of different things. And that's because of, our dietary choices. And we've had I did a whole series on healthy foods and things like that on my podcast. But largely in part, the reason why we are being affected like this is because of some of the dietary choices, the jobs that we work, the lack of education, and the neighborhoods we live in. So I think all of those things play a big key role in that. And it's something that, as a minority myself, I look and I say, how do we fix this? And I like to try to focus on how we fix it, opposed to just why we keep dying, because we're dying at an alarming rate, man. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And
that's my thought. Go ahead.
yeah, you hit the top three things. I was just reading an article yesterday. The very top three things that you said, that people that get the coronavirus are more likely to die from it if they have high blood pressure, if they're obese, or if they have diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy how that is the exact three things that a lot of us as minorities lead in as far as diseases that we have. And like you said, a lot of it. Yes, of course, there's a factor that some of it is hereditary, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it too is our own doing, just because of the cultural norms and the types of foods that we eat and things of that sort, and access to food as
Mm-hmm.
well. Because if you think about it, for example, like you mentioned, New York City. I grew up in Washington Heights. Because it's a mostly Dominican neighborhood. When I grew up, there was a lot of produce available in grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, like, when I would go further down to like Harlem, for example, and you go to the local store, there was no fresh produce. Like, everything was just boxed cereal, canned this. Like, there was just no access to like real food, if you know what I mean. There were more like food, like edible substances that I like to call them.
Yeah.
So that has a huge impact. So, but I love the fact that you want to focus on what we can do, because obviously it is what it is, right? We already know that although we're minorities as a percentage of the population, we are the majority when it comes to the prison population.
Absolutely.
And things like that. So let's focus. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we could do to help ourselves. Because if you think about it, for COVID-19 right now, there's no vaccine.
Mm-mm.
And there's hardly any testing, right? It's not as much as we like it to. So the best offense is a good defense. So what are some of the things that we should be doing?
I mean, I think first thing is just looking at the diet. Like, I think we hear it big time. Wash your hands. We know that, but drinking water, like, it's so basic. It seems so basic to drink water. But I read this book called "Our Body's Many Cries for Water." I read that when I was a long time ago, but it was a phenomenal book, because the book says you're not sick, you're thirsty. And it says, like, and it goes through all these different diseases that were actually different ailments, like acid reflux. By drinking, the required amount of glasses of water on a daily basis, it actually lowered acid reflux. It helped with allergies. Yes, it helped with allergies by drinking more water. So there's a long laundry list of things that can actually be helped by just consuming more water. And we know that as Americans and just people in general, we don't consume nearly enough water. So I think that's one thing that we can do in the communities. And I'm not saying water is going to save everybody, but it is going to make a difference. Dietary choices, getting some fresh veggies, getting some greens in you, doing, maybe exercising. And I'm not saying go out there and kill yourself. I'm just saying get moving, for 30 minutes. Even if you go on a walk, that's fine. If you get out of the house and you go on a walk, getting out there, get some vitamin D from the sun. You're going to get a little cardio work from walking around. You're drinking your water. Your serotonin levels go up. That actually also increases your immune system. So there's so many different things just from getting your body moving and getting out of the house, that if we can make that a part of our daily routine, it's going to help us overcome this and prevent us from getting sick in the future. So it's not just a now thing, it's a forever thing. And this has to become a lifestyle change for all minorities.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned the word lifestyle, because it's not a matter of just doing it once and be like, all right, I'm good. A lot of us, I've been guilty of this. I start a workout routine and I just do it for 4 weeks and then drop it, right? Life gets in the way. But if you can make it part of your daily life, I mean, if you think about how there are certain things that are non-negotiable for us every day, right? Like you get up, brush your teeth, have breakfast, right? Go to work, etc. So if we can incorporate, hey, you know what? I'm going to do 20, 30 minutes a day of something good for my body, whether it could be a walk. You don't have to go out there and start squatting 400 pounds.
No.
It could just be a quick walk after dinner, something, whatever you can do.
Yeah. And I think those are the subtle lifestyle changes that people of color can make that would make a tremendous impact on their life. It's the incremental increase that after, if you do it for a week, if you do it for a month, you do it for a year, you see those little increases. Now, after those first 30 days, you might not see all the increases that you think you deserve or you think you should have,
right?
But we're not doing it for that. We're doing it for the overall change. And that might take a little more time than normal. But I think it's something that we can do. And like I said, this isn't going to be like a something that's going to just change overnight. But what we have to do is continue to do those little tiny habits. And after you string enough of those together, you look back and you're like, man, I've been doing this for 10 days. And there's nothing that feels better than doing something new that's going to help you and then starting to feel a little better, but keeping the consistency of doing it on a regular basis. So find the right time. If it's going to be working out in the morning, then make sure you do it every day. If it's 7:00, then make it 7:00. Do it every day at 7:00, whether it's AM or PM. And then just stay consistent, schedule it out. I think that would make a big deal. Instead of having rice with your meal, throw in some greens, throw in some squash, throw in some, do some I was going to say cabbage, but when you cook cabbage with the neck bones and other stuff in it, it might not be the best thing to do, but getting those greens in and making sure that you're eating them along with the water will make a huge difference in your immune system.
Agreed. Yeah. Greens, water, exercise. Definitely can't go wrong with that. I listen to Tony Robbins a lot, and he says repetition is the mother of skill. And I like how you were putting that into context, because the more you do something, the more it's going to become a habit. So they say that nature fills a void. And I'm a big believer in this. I always find that us as human beings, we end up filling a void. And let me give you an example. Let's say with finances. If I were to give people $1,000 a month raise right now, when I have conversations with people, they tell me how they would spend that $1,000. Hardly ever somebody tells me as a priority, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to max out, my 401k. Or it's always like, what else am I going to buy? What else am I going to spend it on? Right. So a lot of people that would get the extra money would find a way to spend it. So I've seen clients that used to make, say, $60,000 a year, and now they make double that, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck because they just got the nicer car and the nicer home. Just like you said when you first started. So it's not like they could have stayed with the old lifestyle, maybe improve a little bit and still save, but somehow we just find that void and just fill it with something. So if you build a good habit, you can replace an old one with a good one, and it'll stick.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'll even give you a personal story. So we go over to, my wife and I have been in our house for some time. I was here before we even got married, so I've been here like 10 years, right? We both have our cars. We got married, got our finances, merged them. We go to a party, a little while back, and we show up, and there's 5 of us. My older daughter didn't go, but there's 5 of us fitting into our 5 passenger car. I mean, we're
Right.
packed in here, right? We're in here like sardines.
Sardines.
And everybody over there has like there's a few new nice cars over there, and everybody's like, man, why don't you guys buy a new car? I said, because I'm not going to get another payment until this car is paid off. There's like some financial things that I'm going to do, and I don't care like that. Like until I finish this goal, I'm not moving on to the next one. And having that's a habit. It didn't start there. It started with me not going on to Amazon and buying something. Yesterday, I put something in my cart. I was like, I'm going to buy it. I could afford it. It was $89. But I said, you know what? We have some other goals that we need to do. I'll put it in my cart, save it for later until we get what we need to get done. It'll be there when I need it. And I think those little habits like that carry over into us not buying a car. We can go buy a car right now because, good credit. They got 84-month loan. But they have an 84-month loan.
No payment for 3 months now.
No payment for 3 months. We'll do it. And it's like, we could go get one, but is it going to help us in our journey to pay off debt? No, it's not. It's actually going to give us more debt. So it's not something that we need right now. And like you were saying about the like I've been saying about the habits, like doesn't only apply to what you do far as your health. It applies in every aspect, because how you do one thing, my daughter's going to hear me saying this if she's in the house somewhere. How you do one thing is how you do everything. If you notice that, like if you procrastinate at schoolwork, then you're going to procrastinate at work. You're going to procrastinate in life. You're going to procrastinate in everything. It doesn't just stay in one aspect of your life. So if you are undisciplined in how you eat, I promise you probably don't have much discipline to your finances. And this is why we have been disproportionately affected, because we have done things or had a lack of discipline in so many different areas of our life. And then there's some systemic things, we can get into that, but there's the lack of discipline has affected minorities at a much higher rate than it has anybody else, because it's begin in one aspect, whether it's how we eat, whether it's how healthy we are, how we exercise. Then it goes into our finances. Then it gets into our education. Then it gets into our families. Don't let me go. I'm gonna stop right there because this could get real deep. But I mean, it's those little tiny habits, man.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I love that, man. It's so true. And it's something that I never really thought about in that context. You're so right. Like you don't necessarily see somebody that is like really good. I mean, it happens obviously, but like those things, they transfer, right? So if you're a terrible eater, you're probably not disciplined with your finances. I mean, it's true, right? I know some people here might be like, well, no, not necessarily, but I think you're right. I think those habits do carry to some extent, and that's something that we have to be mindful of, without a doubt, man. And you mentioned some of the systemic things. Obviously, we could be talking about systemic things here all day, but I definitely wanted to just continue on the path of talking about the other things that we could do.
Yeah.
So I know on your when you had me on your podcast, we talked a little bit about the stimulus payments and things of that sort. Right now, we have a lot of minorities that are also in the gig economy. So we have our Uber drivers and delivery drivers and whatnot, and they've been impacted tremendously. I have clients that drive Ubers and they can't go out there and drive right now because social distancing rules. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on some of the things that people can do financially for now. For example, I'm sure you're probably already aware, but unemployment benefits have been extended to those that normally would not have qualified for unemployment. So if you are an independent contractor out there, you could apply for unemployment up to $600 a week for 13 weeks, I believe, was included in the stimulus. Also, the SBA loans, they just got some more funding, I believe, this morning. President Trump just signed it into law. So there's a couple of, we say billion now, like it's me and you talking about change now, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like 484 billion. Go ahead, handle
Billion
that.
dollars. Yeah, just for the Small Business Administration there's two programs, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan that you can go and apply directly at the SBA website. That's sba.gov/disaster. And there's also the Paycheck Protection Program. So even if you don't have employees, you can still apply for these things if you have been impacted by this. So we're going to put that in the resource section. But I just wanted to bring that up again to make sure that people know that there are certain things that they can do. Another thing that you and I spoke about was the student loans, how if you have federal student loans, you have the ability to postpone those payments up until September 30th. But I like one of the things that you mentioned, some of the opportunities that people can take advantage of. So if you can go a little bit into that, like let's say that somebody listening has federal student loans and maybe they haven't been impacted, they're still working from home, they're making money. What are some of the things they should consider?
Absolutely. So one thing that I've been sharing with my clients is if you are, if you do have an opportunity and your income hasn't been affected that much, I think this is a definite time to leverage, was the word that I use, leverage these opportunities to pay off some other things. So if you're making your student loan payments and it's okay and you're not, everything's fine, I think you can take this opportunity to take those 3 months that they're not going to charge you. I think it might be all the way up to September, like you said, right?
Yeah, September 30th. Yeah.
Yeah. So take this time. Say you're making a $300 payment. Well, September's 5 months away. You do the math on that. That's $1,500. Where can you utilize that $1,500? Like redirect some of those funds. If you have a car payment, what I had recommended to most of my clients, I said, whether you're in good financial standing and you can make the payment and there's some other debts that you need to take care of, I think you should, try to meet with your, contact your lender and see what kind of relief they have in that aspect. Contact your insurance person, especially on your liability insurance. So your home, auto, maybe renter's insurance, whatever you have, call those. And I know one in particular company, Safeco, is actually sending back 15% rebate checks for people that are doing that. Now you're saying, hey, Emlen, I'm doing good financially. Well, that's good. Let's get you doing great, right? Let's understand this opportunity we have and redirect some of our funds that we have in our personal finance to take care of some things, pay off some debts. Don't take this money and go and, don't go buy that new car for the 84 months loan and to put yourself in a bigger hole, but really comb through your finances and find out where different opportunities were. So anyone that you owe money to, whether it's a credit card, whether it's insurance, whether it is any loan that you have, anything, call those people and check with it. Whether it's whether it's your utility bills, whether it's your water bill, call all of them. And what's the worst that can happen? So you might be able to save yourself a few bucks. I haven't had anyone that hasn't been able to save money yet. So if someone comes on and if you find out that someone made these calls and wasn't able to save money, I'll apologize. But as of now, no one that I've talked to that I've suggested doing this to hasn't come away saving some money.
Yeah, you're right. I think that aside from things that are included in the stimulus, there are companies that are just voluntarily doing this. Major auto insurance are returning premium or giving you some sort of credit. You can call your cable company, maybe that sports package, you can get a break on it right now because there are no sports going on.
Yeah.
Right. And those are little things, but they can add up significantly. And, typically we as advisors tell people, ideally you want to have at a minimum 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved in your emergency fund. Now, a lot of people think of that as cliche, right? But I think that this particular situation has really emphasized the importance of that. How, think about it, as of the recording of this podcast, there's 26 million people out of work.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are more that haven't even been able to log into the system yet because the systems are so overwhelmed at the state level. Yeah. We're talking in 5 weeks. Think about this. 26 million people. That is all the jobs that were created since 2008, plus some were erased. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday. I asked her, how many people are in the Dominican Republic? It's close to 11 million estimated. I told her, imagine everybody in the Dominican Republic out of work, times 2, plus
Haiti.
another 4 million.
And Haiti, right? Just
and
the whole
Haiti.
island, just
the whole island.
Dominican Republic, Haiti. It's delicate. We have to try to figure something out to get people back to work, but to get them back to work safely and allow them to provide for their families like they used to. And one thing we didn't even touch on was how this is affecting other countries. You brought up the DR, and one of the statistics that is out there, or one of the factors that is out there, is that a lot of people that come to this country, whether they immigrate here and they have family and other back home, wherever home may be,
Mm-hmm.
they're sending money back to them. So that's 26 million Americans. Now, all of the 26 million aren't sending money back, but let's carve out a population and say there is a large population of those people that are actually sending money back to other countries. And that money that they send back is affecting the economies in those countries, because a lot of countries around the world depend on our economy and the people that we have working in our workforce to send money back to them, and the tourism that we bring when Americans travel. And this is another piece of the economy that is devastated right now. Like, you lived you're from the DR, so there's a lot of tourism that people go there.
Oh yeah.
We were in Jamaica for a couple months back, and there's people from all over the world traveling, and all that's stopped. So it's a trickle effect of everything that's happening with this COVID-19 thing. But
Yeah, no, without a doubt, man. That's a great point. So I wanted to tell people, those listening, like, if you have not been impacted, you've been lucky enough. It's funny how perspective changes. I wake up every morning, I thank God because I'm healthy and I'm employed. I mean, just those two things, right? Which a lot of people right now wish they could say that. So if you have that blessing where you're healthy, you're employed, you're still getting paid, you'll be able to work from home, and you have not saved up enough in emergency savings, I hope that this is a really rude awakening and eye opener for you. And maybe you could do some of those things that Emlen's talking about to then increase your emergency funds if you have one, or start one if you don't. So the little things like postponing your mortgage payment if you can, postponing your student loan payments if you can, and all that, but then rerouting that money towards building an emergency fund, so that if, God forbid, you are in the second round of layoffs or something, you have at least something to fall back on, and not have to resort to borrowing money from credit cards and all that stuff, and then just dig yourself into a further hole.
Mm-hmm. And that's just financial planning 101, right? Get 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses, have it saved up, and this is why we need more Luises, more Emlens, more people like us talking to people like us about how important it is to save that money, because you never know what's going to happen. If people, just think about it, if everyone had 3 months of savings in their savings account, this wouldn't even be an issue.
Right.
Now, granted, some people don't make enough money to be able to put that away, and we understand that. But for those people that do make enough money and have mismanaged their finances and put themselves in this situation, shame on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even those that cannot save that much, you can always save something, right?
Yeah.
Most people out there, I was reading an article saying like the large majority of Americans are not even prepared to cover $400 emergency without having to borrow, and $400, we're talking like 2 flat tires, like it's very unfortunate. And I think this could be an opportunity for some of the people that have an option to start saving some money and rerouting some of the monies that they can save towards an emergency saving.
Yep.
The other thing too is even like life insurance, man. I mean, I speak to a lot of people in my culture where it's like a jinx to bring up the subject of life insurance. People with kids. I mean, some of my own family members, and I'm like, man, I'm a certified financial planning professional here. And, I can't even get through, man. It's like they say, you bring the horse to the water, can't make him drink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have kids, man. Get yourself the cheapest policy out there for 30 years or whatever, 20 years, whatever you can get, right? If you can't afford much, but you can't, because I see people passing away, man. And the mentality is like family takes care of family, family's life insurance, family's long-term care. There's no plans of, obviously you don't want to put your elderly in a home or anything like that, but times have changed. You got to be prepared, so those are the kinds of things that we're lacking for sure. And it goes back to what you said initially, education. It really does go back to that. You know,
not to cut you off. Go ahead. Just finish
no,
your
just,
thought.
I know that a lot of us like me, like I wasn't taught that in school and I wasn't taught that at home. So it was hard to learn all these things. I had to learn just by trial and error. But I think now people having access to internet and financial planners like you and I who work with people on a monthly basis and all that stuff, you don't even have to be a millionaire to work with a planner anymore. Like there are people like us that will work with people that don't even have money to invest, that focus more on student loans and all that stuff. Go ahead, brother. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just like the whole life insurance issue. It's funny you said that. I'm doing a podcast on life insurance this weekend by myself. But you can change an entire generation by well-placed life insurance.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we want people to benefit from our death, but I mean, what would you rather have them doing? Like, I think about my wife and I think about other people that are married, yourself. And, if you lose someone, like if I was to pass away or my wife was to pass away or anyone that loses a loved one, that's already devastating. But do you want to couple that with a financial burden that you are not able to handle? Like, I want to be able to know that if I passed away and my wife is sitting there at the funeral and she's, already trying to figure out what she's going to do with the kids, money's not going to be what she has to worry about. You only get life insurance if you love someone first or if you owe someone second. But it's always because you love someone. And so if you're purchasing that life insurance policy, and I can get on my whole soapbox about this because I have some very, very deep feelings about life insurance. Get a term policy and forget the rest of the nonsense. Just make sure you have a convertibility feature on that term policy. So when you get older, you can convert it into something permanent, but get as much term as you can, protect your insurability, and you're stealing my notes from my show.
This is going to be a continuation. You're going to run right into your show. Thank you. You bring up a great point. I mean, you could impact generations going forward just by simply being properly protected. And we're not talking about you got to have millions and millions of dollars of insurance either. Like you said, you could just buy a simple term policy. I mean, we all have auto insurance when we drive, right? And yeah, if you don't have a car accident, you don't benefit from it. But God forbid you do get into a car accident, it's there, right? So same concept, but with a much larger impact, because now you're talking about your kids and your wife and your husband and your partners, people you love, like you said. I love that. Love and right? That was beautiful. Man, you got all the great sayings, man.
Man, I'm just repeating what I heard. That's all that is. I didn't make up any of them. I borrow those.
Well, before I start picking your brain about more stuff that you're supposed to have in your own podcast, let me ask you something that I always ask. I started to ask people now is if there was one thing that today that you wish you would have known back in the day, your younger self, what would that be that you'd like to share with us?
I wish I would have paid more attention to being able to make an impact in other people's lives. And I say that like it's a opening up to a much broader thing. But when I was young, I remember when I was working at the bank and I first started seeing like financial advisors and stuff like that. Only thing I wanted to do was make a whole bunch of money. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Didn't care about impact. I cared about myself. Right. I wanted to drive that nice car. And so that's what got me into the industry. That's what led me into the industry. As I've gotten older, I just wish I would have known that I could make impact. And if you make the impact in someone's life, you'll be compensated for it. The money will follow. And I just wish that I would have got a hold of that a little sooner. And I think it would have helped me get into the career a little faster as being an advisor, not chasing dollars, just chasing impact and trying to help as many people as I can. And now that's my passion, like just helping people, and whether it's financially, whether it's encouragement, whether it's, motivating them in any way that I can, because I think that life is about the relationships that you build. And I have built some great relationships and always love to make an impact in the people that I have relationships with.
Man, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That gives us a lot of insight. And I think Yeah, this is why we touch on so many subjects, because you're caring, your ability to impact people, not just financially, right? Because we can talk about numbers all the time, but a lot of people perhaps are listening to this and not realize we were going to touch about drinking your greens and taking a walk. Or like, what? Two financial planners talking about exercise. Did not see that one coming. But that is awesome. And well, believe it or not, man, I hope that you know that you are impacting a lot of people. You certainly have impacted me, whether you know it or not. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, brother. Thanks for having me. And I think, like I said, that there's iron sharpening iron. And I think that the financial services industry and the advisors of color are going to make massive impacts in the communities of color. Like, we are going to change the complexion of wealth. As you know, that's your
tagline.
So we're going to change the complexion of wealth, man. And I think, with guys like yourself and me and the tribe that we belong to, we're going to do it. And I'm glad that I was able to impact you, and you definitely impact me. So I thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with your audience, and man, I look forward to the great things that you continue to do, and let's kill it, bro.
Oh, absolutely, man. Before I let you go, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, where do you live? Online, social media, websites, all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah. IG is usually popping. You know what I mean? You can get at me on IG, or and I'll give you all my tags, but I'm on IG. I'm on Twitter very frequently and then I have my Facebook stuff. So on IG, it's going to be E Miles-Mattingly. So that's EMILES-MATTINGLY. Same tag on Twitter. That's where you find me most of the time. I also have my Minority Money podcast. That's going to be on all platforms. So, Apple, Spotify, Google, and that's Minority Money Podcast. And yeah, man, I'm always talking about all kinds of stuff on there. So if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on any one of those platforms.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll be sure to put those in the resource section on the show notes, and also your firm's website as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Gen Next Wealth. So we try to bring minority families clarity, harmony, and focus to their finances.
Love it. Love it. Changing the complexion of wealth, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. A little quick disclaimer here. Gen Next Wealth, Build a Better Financial Future, and Retirement Wealth Advisors are not affiliated. This is for education and information purposes only. Be sure to speak to your financial planner, your tax advisor, medical doctors, and all that good stuff before you make any decision for yourself. Thank you. We'll see you on the next show.
Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Send Luis an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. To read the show notes and the blog, please visit www.onmywaytowealth.com. Luis Rosa is an investment advisor representative of Retirement Wealth Advisors, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. Build a Better Financial Future and Retirement Wealth Advisors are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with the professionals specializing in the fields of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information for their situation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested.